But we like a big.
No break
in the old days.
No break dancing for this morning.
I'll be such a kid from the old days. Let's take a picture of the man.
No, there isn't any.
We're going to show you some nice clothes. This thing weighs 7,000 pounds. This anchor right here. This anchor was assembled of Newport, Rhode Island. Its size and shape matches British Admiral's perfections for Gower anchor for a 74 gunship on the line Revolutionary War in 1812. Period. It weighs about 7,000 pounds, as I told you, and probably came from a vessel blockaded in Newport Harbor. Gower anchors were a ship's largest and were carried on the back. The vessel might also carry a smaller stream anchor used when anchoring fore and aft by two anchors. The smallest anchor was carried to the keg, used to move the ship.
I can't get it back on.
There has to be some.
New York Yacht Club Station number 10. That was brought to the front of ours on Long Island. In that building there in the 1800s, the New York Yacht Club members first began to talk about the challenge of the American pub. They sent the yacht in America over to England to challenge the demonstration they brought home to God. Three-story brick building right off the skirt alley of the building serves the press room of formal exhibit critics museum. On the lower level is a history of maritime trade going back to the 1600s. And then on the second level is an extension to Crystal collection, sailor cards. And then on the second level is a series of small buildings along the river. Quite amazing. So you can go in there and look around.
This isn't the warm part, you know why? This gets warm in there.
Tomorrow is our 21st annual survey. So going off, going on, running about 10 miles down the river to the race to the island. So wharf right here, the iron flag vessel tied up along the wharf is being called W. Morgan. She grew up in the Great American Whaling Fleet. She was built in 1841 and she was the of the whaling fleet for 80 years. The wharf was built in the first before the war against the land and she used tie up along all three sides of the wharf, and that way one side was to get more weather than another. The whole depot was described as Newport Morgan to glory in a few. So Block Island, California, produced by Richmond off Rock Island. Rock Island, Long Island, off the coast of Rhode Island. Usually it's about a 6-inch during the day, and when they're done fishing, they get little on the street. White boat is a Stella egg. She's a French fish food. They were originally used along the coast of Maine for lobster fishing. Later on, they were used as yachts for very successful boats. But if you have a long short day, for fish boat, fishing short visual appearance at the middle of the lobster dock. Everybody on the turn on the pond. Yeah, it goes to Conrad. It was built in 1882 as a sail train vessel from the Atlantic Denmark. In those days, all gated young men would use them real well. You saw the small school rig built in 1852, only about 100 feet long. By full rig, ship like they're 3 aft and directly on all that. He has a huge iron, and all his iron, and he's got everything around something. This is a training vessel today, although it's no longer supposed to be. During the summer, we have live aboard for a week or 2 at a time and set up a dormitory down below. Then they run the rigging and interested in sort of the stage of kind of how to position behind the ground. Like to see other things that are upside down along the dock there. Navigating through bodies like getting a real idea of what it might have been like to be. Then during the fall and spring, we have classes of smooth over to come to bring our sleeping bags and stay over for a couple of hours. We learn all about the sea, but it's a carrier. It's a lot of fun for them. We also offer some adult sailing classes and youth sailing classes on the Navy here during the warmer months. We start youth training buildings. All the youth building with a white unit and trophies for sailing classes. Big open area in the middle where we come to train making sailing. We're coming around Lighthouse Point now. This lighthouse is a replica of the Grand Point Lighthouse on their project. That lighthouse is the second lighthouse to be built in New England. It was built in 1746. It's also short. It's all along the south. It's only 22 feet high. It needs to be very high because it's so small to the land and it's out of the air far away. That has a very powerful lens that can be 10 miles away. The original Nantucket lighthouse is now on display in the city. This is here, lighthouse is not a people age navigation along the river, but we do have a lighthouse on the Arno lighthouse is a modern building with great strength. This part of the Plymouth Portage Company road block operated in Massachusetts. The buildings were cut down to 4th of the original size. There was 1,000 people on there. There was accommodating more than on the ground.
Alright, those are the pectoral flippers. That's what she uses to steer and to brake with. So right now, I'm going to ask her to show you a little ballet and show you how well she can steer with those flippers. Round we go. She looks like a big washing machine. A little more straight up. What are you doing? You're trying to turn your side up. There we go. Good job, you good girl. Very nice. Now, Shula is stationed at a step farther. She's actually able to swim along the front of the stage while she spirals. Now, this will give you a chance to see not only how well she uses those pectoral flippers to steer with, but how she uses that powerful flipping area from her dorsal ridge all the way back through with a wall of muscle.
Go up there, then it can go way down.
As she spins, you'll be able to see that her belly is a much lighter color than the rest of her body. And also, as she spins, you'll be able to get a glimpse of all that blood that she's got. I'm going to keep some warm up in the Arctic. So let's get into her starting position. She's the only one here that does this behavior. Here we go.
Okay, watch this.
Very nice, all the way down. Keep spinning. All the way down, one more time. Good job, you. Now, you saw a moment ago that I was covering up her blowhole. It does take a lot of perspiration. Here we go. Can I have a big little kiss? body is big and bulky, has a lot of warmth on it, so that she stays warm up in the Arctic. So right now, we're going to ask her to hit this. This is quite an accomplishment for a beluga whale. Come on up. Take the signal, go for it. All right, she's going to come up and take a look at it, dive down to the 20-foot bottom on speed run. She must come up and
She's only around 4 years old, and Ara just came to us this past October. One more time, all the way. Nice job. Now, dolphins aren't known as very graceful and powerful swimmers. We also believe that over the years they have developed a lens in their eye that does enable them to see underneath the water as well as above the water. Right now, what I'm going to ask Nina to do is to judge a couple of distances. The first one will be the hurdle pole. Now, Nina does realize that she will have to completely go over this hurdle pole, that she cannot touch it with any part of her body. Now, when I ask Nina to do this, you'll see Al pop up to the side. The reason for that is Al is an inexperienced performer. She's only been in training since October, and she's sort of Nina's understudy. Nina, are you ready to do this? Can we do the hurdle pole, Nina? Right now, she's going on something known as a speed run all the way around the pole, and this is her height. Let's go, Nina, all the way around. And here she comes. Go, Nina, go! Nice job, Nina. Yeah, that was pretty good. Well, the next distance I will be asking her to judge is something known as a hanging hoop. Now, this hanging hoop does present a problem to Nina, since she is an air-breathing mammal just like you and I. She was ever to get caught in any kind of enclosure similar to this one, she could be cut off from her air supply and drown. So this one behavior does take a lot of trust. Go ahead, Nina, along with a lot of conditioning, just for her to accept putting her body through this. Okay, she's taking a look at it. Right now, she's going to drop 20 feet to the bottom of the pool, make this jump from a complete standstill, jumping towards the center section. Go, Nina! Now, dolphins do use their body for a form of communication. One way that these animals communicate with us is something known as a lobtail. All a lobtail is, you get that fish meat, is simply then taking their tail flukes and slamming them up against the surface of the water, just like that. Now, all the while, what they might be trying to tell other animals is that they're upset with them. They may use this to discipline their young. Girls, can we come on back here? Let's really try to do a nice lobtail for everybody. And here at the aquarium, they use it to communicate with the trainers. We're to ask these animals to do something that they simply do not want to do. Give us one of these, meaning no. Can we try to hit the water, Nene? Nice job. Come on back here. Well, another form of communication that these animals use is on a much larger scale, and that's known as a breach. All a breach is an upside-down belly flop. Now, this is used for long-distance communication. Oh, those are pretty sad. Come on back over here. Now, what they might be trying to tell other animals is that there's a large food supply. That is danger. Or maybe they're just taking parasites off their body that might have attached. Now, I know these two animals can get a lot higher than that, so what I'm going to do is go back to that behavior later on in the demonstration and see if they can get their bodies entirely out of the water. Right now, what I'm going to ask them to do is a behavior that you saw beluga whales do, and that's something known as retrieval. Now, these animals do it for the same basic reasonings that the beluga whales do, because if they were to find anything foreign in their pool, they would swallow it. It could be very harmful to their health. Nice throw, Arrow. All the way across the stage. Now, that is a new behavior to Arrow. She's just learning how to develop it. And, Nina, can I have that ball right over here, Nina? Let's throw it towards me, okay? Nice job, Nina. Good throw. That was nice. Yeah, don't get upset with her. Well, now we'll go back to those breaches and see if they can do a little bit better and if they'll have a little bit more energy. We're going to try some nice breaches. That one's a little bit better. Center pool with their breaches. Good job, Nina, can you come on over here? I know that must take a lot of energy, all the way out there.
going nice and high. Keep going. Keep going all the way out there. And a couple more just to get the energy level nice and high. Keep going. Now what counts on these beaches is the amount of noise that it makes when they hit the water because it increases the distance. One more final breathe spells all the way out there. Nice job. Well, the next behavior that I will, girls, can you come on over here? Now, the only time that you see an animal doing this behavior, known as beaching or stranding, out in the wild is if they're sick or injured. But here at the aquarium, we do it for many different reasons. Mina, come on, Mina, all the way up here. Let's go, Mina. Nice job. Now, you'll notice on either side of Mina's body, she has something known as pectoral flippers, which help her for braking and steering. Mom, back up here. Let's go, Nina. And on her back, she has something known as a dorsal fin. Now, that dorsal fin does help her to stabilize herself. It's something similar to a keel on a boat. Nina, can you come on back over here? Let's not play with arrow, okay? That's a dorsal fin. And all the way from that dorsal fin back to those tail flukes is one sound wall muscle. And then the tail flukes where they generate all the power. Nice job, Nina. Keep it up there. That was a really nice job, Nina. Good work. Well, the next behavior I will ask Nina to do is something to show you the power that she does have in those tail flukes, and that's something known as a tail walk. All I'm simply going to do is ask Nina to take that 345 pounds and walk right across the surface of the water. Now, this is the most strenuous behavior that I could ask Nina to perform. We were going to burn up the amount of energy that it's going to take Nina to do this one behavior. We're going to have to walk about 15 to 20 miles at a really good pace. Hey, Nene, want to stop floating for a couple seconds and look at me? Know what's going on, huh? How about if we do a little ballet and trick her, Arrow? Maybe she'll do a little ballet and think we're not going to do the tail walk. High blood, so all the way around. This is a dolphin ballet. All the way. Keep going. Nice job, Nina. Arrow, you got to go all the way around your circle to complete this. One more time. All right, nice job. Hey, Nina, are you awake? Can you do the tail walk, Nina? You ready? You're going to float again, aren't you, Nina? You are. Nina, look at me. This isn't fun. Ready? Go, Nina, go! All the way back there, Nina. Keep it going nice and high, Nina. Nina, you're bobbing. Get back here. I'm not going to accept that. No, Nina. Nina knows that she's not supposed to look like a yo-yo. She knows that she's supposed to go completely back, aren't you, Nina? You're going to be mad at me now, huh? Yep, she's going to swim away, saying, well, you should have accepted that. Nina, can you come back here? You want to try a nice tail walk for everybody? All the way. Nina, don't yo-yo. All the way, Nina. Keep it going. Don't hurt me. All right, nice job, Nina. All over to the water. Nina, go all the way over here. Nina's going to swim away again. Okay, one way that you can always get to one of the older dolphins is by feeding the younger dolphin their fish. Nina, you want to come on back here? Nina, don't play games with the ball. Okay, it's time for Nina to play games. She thinks maybe not. Nina, can you look at me? She's still upset with me. Nina, okay, what I'm going to do is just back up for a second and put Nina on something that's known as a time-out. All I'm simply doing is taking my attention away from a very attention-motivated animal. Now, this is the only form of discipline that we use here at the aquarium. All I'm simply telling that animal is that I'm not pleased with her behavior. And she's not pleased with mine either. Come on over here. Let's go, Nene. Come on, you can do it. Once you tell them that the tail walk isn't any good, you're done for the day. Nene, come on over here. Nina, let's go. Nina, I know Arrow. Arrow can't do this behavior yet either. We're just teaching her how to target on the ball. The way that you introduce a target jump to these animals is by simply lowering the ball to the surface of the water, asking them to go out and touch it. Once they touch it, we do reward them, and then each time we gradually get it higher. Nina, you anymore, so I can't sit here. Nina! Alright, looks like she might be coming over. What she just did is put me on a timeout. Nina! Nina, don't try it, Nina! Nina! I know you're mad, Nina. Well, come on over here, Nina! Come on, Nina! Don't play games with me, Arrow. Nina, come on, right up here, Nina! Let's go, Nina! Come on! Come on, Nina, don't swim away. Let's go! Come on, Nina. One more lap. All the way up here, Nina. Come on, Nina. Go for it, Nina. She looks real enthused here. She should go on her speed run using that whole half to pull Nina off. Nina, you want to come on back here? That was lousy attention to me. Okay, she does have one more try at this, and we're only going to stand out here for a couple more seconds. Because I'm giving her attention that she really doesn't deserve at this point. Nina, you ready? Let's go, Nina. I'm sorry. Come on. Come on, Nina. Let's go. No, huh? Come on, Nina. 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 I know you can see me, Nina. She's looking at me like, I wouldn't even what. Go, Nina. Come on, Nina. We're going to take the signal. She has taken the signal.
Also, for those of you who are interested, our 11:30 Marine Mammal demonstration will begin in about 10 minutes in the Marine Theater. It's located back inside in our main building. You go to the shark tank, take a leg, and there should be a ramp that will bring you upstairs. This again will begin in about 10 minutes.
It's so easy. Left down is hard. Jump. Yeah, right. Jump from there to the
So there's one over there.
You can't even see us probably cut.
You were over there.
No, it's so easy.
Hey, you guys all done looking inside? So you still got another half hour.
Goodbye.
He's got spikes.
How about waving, Nick? Mom?
I waved. Yeah, I'm furry too. Yeah, I like nice and furry. No. Yes. Well, actually, yesterday was our first day, but the drive and everything, we didn't have time to do anything. All I hear comes our beautiful mother. Martha Taylor. Anyway, we're gonna just hop on a trolley. We're gonna hop on a trolley and see where it takes us. And these are our sandwiches. And yesterday was my mommy's birthday. She was 30.
No! I don't want to know how old I am.
35. No, 34.
Thanks.
You heard it from the lady herself. She's 34, and I want to show her some of the gifts. We've got the radio there. Got the necklace here, and we've also got. Be right back. Where's your and she's got her waist first. And we're just about to hop in the trolley.
So, I guess.
We can just go on. I'll be right back, Daddy. Daddy, come on, take me. Mom, why did I have one of these escalators is broken?
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket 20. Tranquility with something on the ground.
Hello.
Hi! Hey, my name is Jim.
Whatever that song is. Good.
I don't know how to do the dinosaur.
There's a skydive.
I'm David for the Nova.
Stay.
I'm homesick. I want to go home.
He's quasi.
Dad, look at me. The red light's not on, Daddy. Now it is. Here we are having breakfast at Evergreen on Thursday. And we're going to go climbing on rocks and then shopping. And then they're going to leave at 12 o'clock and we're going to wait till Saturday.
I think I might have something at the trading post. Hello. Good morning. Oh, James.
Grandpa, smile for the camera.
No way.
Crystal, try to turn his face. Don't turn his face. Dad, me. Hello. Off now. And then we are going to go shopping. Yay! Yay!
Knock it off.
Yeah. Yeah, Grandma should buy us that house. That brown one? No, Grandma should make us a house right here. Yeah, right, by the rocks. Yeah, but I can climb the rocks every single day this summer. Unless it's raining. Oh my god. Yeah. Crystal. Do you know where the beach is? All the way down there at the other side of the beach. At the other side of the ocean. The other side of the ocean. That's where it is.
You know, it was like eerie.
Decisions. Which way do we go, George? Which way do we go? Our fearless leader plunges ahead. One by one. And they're off.
picture. That was it, okay? That's enough. James, please. That's not James.
Are these mounted to the black walnut panel walls. Can you see by the stops that they're darker, they're scarred, they've been used? Look overhead. Have those muskets been used? No. No. So your eye tells you immediately that those are reproductions. They can be fired easily as these can be fired. Very accurately made. So this is to bring that number up to that proper number in the inventory. So you would be interested to look around. Perhaps some of you, if you are a little more upper class, might be invited to sit down in the parlor. And then in there you'd be studying the scripture prints. And perhaps later in the day, if you're a guest of the governor for dinner. By the way, dinner was served at 2 in the afternoon. You had breakfast, dinner, and supper in the 18th century. Supper was served just before going to bed at night. So your main meal of the day is 2 in the afternoon. Afterward, the ladies would be stepping in here for a little tea. You never would be invited to step into the butler's pantry. That's Mr. Marshman's domain, and he's in charge of looking after the running of the palace. This is a bachelor governor, so he's also assuming some of the responsibilities that Mrs. Botetourt might already have assumed. England that was to be destroyed, so they were salvaged, and here they are on our walls. So the room is meant to impress you because this is where the governor is greeting his guests. But he's going to begin his day here by dressing. These are his clothes presses. We had closets 200 years ago. There's a closet. We have closets.
Very cool. You know? Got the figurines up against the mantel. That's how some lazy Susan, huh?
Can we keep them there?
I was going to say.
Well, hold it. Just a second here. Oh, you push button already? There you go.
Get me out, Dad.
Come on, get in there. Your mother said if you don't get in there, she's going to beat you up.
Sure he does. Okay, Mom, I'll make sure he does it.
Will work here, and I'm going to talk a little about the evolution of government here in Virginia. Now, in order to do that, I have to start right back at the beginning with the first settlers that came to Virginia. Where did they settle? Anybody know? Jamestown. Right. What year? 1607. Okay, that's a little weak, but I got a few of those in here. Okay. So the first settlement was Jamestown, and the settlers here in Virginia had no voice at all in their government. It was basically run like a dictatorship, and it didn't work out very well. So after about 10 years, the English governor decided to give the settlers here some land of their own. Once he did that, according to English common law at that time, if you owned land, you were entitled to representative government. So what he did was he appointed some advisors, he called them his council, and then they elected some citizens of the burg. Now that's where the term burgess came from. You've probably heard the term, or you will hear it as you go around town. Burgesses were elected. They had their first assembly meeting down in Jamestown in a little church down there in 1619. And that was the first self-governing body to meet in America. And the Virginia Assembly has been meeting ever since. So it's the oldest continuously meeting legislative body in the country. It was patterned after the English Parliament. The appointed advisors were very similar to the House of Lords in Parliament, and then the elected burgesses were similar to the House of Commons. So Jamestown then was the capital of Virginia from 1607 until 1699. And then in 1699, the English governor, that time was Governor Francis Nicholson, decided he wanted to move the capital because Jamestown really is a very healthy place to live. If any of you have been down to Jamestown, you've noticed there's a lot of swamps in the area. There was a lot of disease, a lot of mosquitoes. So he looked around and he picked this area. This was called Middle Plantation. Lawyer here in Williamsburg, and he was the one who introduced the resolves for independence in that May convention of '76. The one in the center is John Robinson. He was the Speaker of the House here for 27 consecutive years. And who's the one on the right? After like marble. They painted it to look like marble. They called that marbleizing. And that was just to make the room look a little fancier. This turkey work carpet that you see on the table with the colors, that's much prettier than the green felt that the burgesses had. And I'm sure these hand-carved chairs were more comfortable than those benches that you were sitting on over on the other side. The governor sat in the one up at the head of the table, and then the 12 council members sat in these 12 chairs here. Now these council members were Virginians, and they were appointed by the King of England to lifetime terms. So they were very important people. The governor would usually recommend to the King of England who he thought would make good counselors, but they were appointed by the king for life. Now the king also appointed the governor, but if he didn't like the job the governor was doing, he could call him back to England and send over a new governor. But the council members, they had practically unlimited power. They could grant land, name government officials, call or dissolve the assembly, initiate or veto legislation. They even had the power to declare war and peace early on. But over the years, the King of England and Parliament put a lot of controls and restrictions on the governors. And also, the House of Burgesses here in Virginia became very large and very powerful. Remember that first assembly meeting that I talked about downstairs that they had in Jamestown? There were 20 burgesses elected, 2 from each county. Just before the Revolutionary War, the number of burgesses had grown to 130. Now, there were still only 2 from each county, but by that time, Virginia had become the largest colony in America. It went from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River and up to the Great Lakes. So it included the states that we now know as Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky, West Virginia, part of Pennsylvania, down around the Pittsburgh area, and part of Wisconsin. So a lot of you are probably old-time Virginians and didn't even realize it. But the burgesses really became very powerful, and the power of the governor and his council members diminished. Just to give you some names of council. So the only cases tried here were the ones that were very important. The criminal cases would have been the ones involving murder or treason. And the ones involving a lot of money. The less important cases were tried in the city or the county courts if they had them around. Now, the governor sat in the center up there, and the 12 council members sat in those 12 chairs, or they were justices when they were down here. And they only needed 5 to have a quorum, so they could have a trial with the governor and 4 council members or 5 council members. And then the clerk of the court sat in the center there at that green table. The jury sat on the benches on this side, the defendant would have been in the center here, and the lawyer or lawyers would have been on this side. The prosecuting attorney was usually the Attorney General of Virginia because these were the most important cases. And the defendant may or may not have had a lawyer. If he could afford one, he could have one. But English common law at that time did not guarantee the defendant the right to a lawyer like we have today. But they did have most of the other basic rights that we still enjoy today. They had the right to face their accuser, call witnesses, they were innocent until proven guilty, and they had the right to a trial by a jury of their peers. So the sheriff of the area that they were from would appoint the jury. Now there were certain qualifications you had to have to serve on a jury. You had to be free, white, male, over 21, and worth over 100 pounds sterling. So that kind of limited the field a little bit. But the jury only determined guilt or innocence, and then the justices were the ones that determined the sentence. And once a trial went to the jury, it didn't take them long to reach a verdict, because what they did, they sent them out to another room in the castle, and they didn't give them any food, any water, or any candles, no light, and they said just stay there until you reach a decision. And they didn't allow any hung juries either, so usually it didn't take them long to get back with a verdict. And if they had a very interesting trial, they would have had spectators standing in these balconies. You see the 2 balconies here. There's stairway from the 2nd floor that come down to those balconies. And they also would have been standing right out here where you're sitting. They wouldn't have had
Property, you find land and you start building it, right? Well, that's what they did with this building. Then when it burnt down, when you make an original building, you make a base. So that base was still there after the building burnt down, and they were still able to build on that base.
The rocks on the bottom.
Right. When they make buildings, the rocks on the bottom, the cellar.
Listen, you can't hear him. Okay, I'll do it. Can we go to the auction? I want to go to the auction.
Governor and senator. His brother was the explorer Admiral Richmond, and one of their ancestors helped to plan the beginnings of the city of Richmond. Well, the next room that we'll look at will be the road time, and people who just joined us, please just come along and complete the tour with us, and then you can come back here to hear the first room on the next tour. Do it flexibly like that.
Thank you.
Things about the building is the dome, which cannot be seen on the outside of the building at all. This is the only place where you can get a view of it. Now the reason is that Jefferson had 2 ideas he wanted to use when he was planning the roof of the building. He wanted the outside to look like a Roman temple with a pointed roof style, but he liked domes and he wanted that too. So he had the dome built underneath the roof inside the building.
coat, even a bit of the lining shows here at the back. And there are complete details of pleats at the back of the coat. They look as fully done in marble as they would have been in cloth. You can see seams in the clothing and stitches around buttonholes, strands in the epaulets on his shoulders. He seems to be wearing tightly fitting gloves through which between 1788 and 1906, and it is now a museum. The room was plain to resemble an open courtyard in the center of an ancient Roman house. The vaulted ceiling is supposed to give the idea of open sky overhead. Now, in the old days, the delegates would use the desks on the main floor, and the spectators would be seated in the balcony. This is the most historic room in the building because there were a number of things that happened in this room which made history in some way. The statues and the other things displayed here were gifts to the Capitol, and they are placed in different categories of history. In the center area are things which are reminders of the early colonial period when we were governed by England. In the case at the end of the row, there is a handmade brick from the foundation of the first building that was used as a capital at Jamestown. The building and the town burned a long time ago, and so this is something that remains of our first Virginia Capitol building. The tall chair in the back is a copy of the original old one, which is now in the Capitol at Williamsburg. In colonial times, the chair in Williamsburg is the one that was used by the governor who had been sent by the king to govern the colony. The king also sent over an object similar to this one, called a mace, and it was a reminder of the king's authority over the colony. So at the time of the Revolutionary War, the people disposed of the original Virginia mace, and we didn't have one for a long time. This one was bought in England in the 1970s. It's made of silver covered with gold, and it doesn't represent anything royal to us today. Instead, it stands for the authority of laws and government. And so whenever the House of Delegates is in session, it is placed at the front of the chamber and remains there until they adjourn. Now in the centerpiece, there is a copy of the small desk that Thomas Jefferson took with him whenever he was traveling. The real one is now kept in the National Archives in Washington. We were given a copy to commemorate the fact that on the real desk that looked like that, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. After that, there was the time of the Revolutionary War. That period of time, the marble one in front of the balcony is of Richard Henry Lee. He helped to plan the Declaration of Independence, and he was one of two brothers who signed it. The next is George Mason, author of the Virginia Declaration of Rights. That became the model for the Bill of Rights added to the Constitution for the nation. Over here is Chief Justice John Marshall. In this room was the judge at the treason trial of Aaron Burr. That was a famous trial at the time and one of the historic events that happened here. The bronze statue in front of the balcony is of Patrick Henry, who made his giving a liberty or death speech at the St. John's Church in Richmond before the Revolutionary War. And then, when there were no more governments arriving from England, he was the first Virginia governor who had been born in America. The marble statue in the corner is of George Wood, who was a law teacher at the College of William and Mary. A number of his students became some of our early government leaders. Starting below the balcony at the end and continuing around the other side of the room are statues of people from the time of the War between the states or the Civil War. They were also born in Virginia, except that they were the archangels who came here from other states. The bronze at the end is Stonewall Jackson. The marble one in front of the balcony is Jed Stewart. They're both famous Army generals. In the niche is Jefferson Davis from Mississippi. He came here to serve as president of the Confederate States. And during most of the war, this original part of the building continued to be the state capitol, but it also was being used as the Confederate Capitol building. At the end of the war, the building was captured, but a guard of soldiers was placed around it to protect it so that it was not damaged. The bronze statue at the left of the door is of Nephew John statue was made after his lifetime. The sculptor was Rudolph Evans, and he used a photograph making Richmond very near the end of the war so that the statue shows us the parents at that time. To the right of the door are three others that are
And they vote here. Huh?
Where's the governor?
He sits up there.
But where is he now?
He's not in right. He's not in right. They don't meet every single day.
on recess for Labor Day.
Right?
Delicious. Look at that shape of it. Mom, why is the roof so...
He works here too.
Yes.